Good morning. We're waiting for Miss Carol to connect. And we're a couple of minutes early, so I went ahead and popped us live on Facebook. Hope you guys had an amazing weekend and enjoying this cold weather, getting us crispy, right? I think Carol's still trying to connect. I know she's here in the building, so we can have a chat. There we go. There we go. We seem to be on a little bit of a technology struggle bus this morning. And so I see she's still trying to connect. I've got her in the room. I usually have more than one. So hopefully I'll have some others pop on. But Carol and I are going to have a great conversation. And we're still going to roll this thing because I know you'll watch it later. And we're so glad to be here this morning. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and check my chat room here to see who else. I've got someone else in the room. Hey, Carol, can you hear me? I don't see your face. I just see your name. Well, she's still there, y'all. It's 8:30, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. And hopefully all this is working and you guys can see me on Facebook. And the link is okay here. So we are still working through. Welcome to Monday Motivation, Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. And I have quite a few in the office that are going through this book with me. Some of you attended last week on Monday in person and also did the James Farron workshop, which was fabulous. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that. I was hoping I'd have some group on here today that could give me some of their ahas from that class. But if you've not joined us before, or this is the first time you're seeing this live stream on Closed Facebook, we want you to get this book right here. Bestseller, Gary Keller with Dave Jinkson and Jay Papasan wrote this book to give us the owner's manual of how to have successful models and do this business intentionally to create success in our world. So wherever you are, and in your journey in your real estate business, you're going to be able to get nuggets out of this that will help you for success. And so the group is actually on page 96, which is getting started with the 3 L's. And we briefly talked about this earlier in the book. The 3 L's is a model and a success model, and it keeps us focused and getting us to perspective on what we should be doing in our business. So if you needed a prescription for gaining some perspective on where you need to go or what you need to do, these are the pages that you need to focus on. And the main thing on those are going to be talking about the 3 L's and also an achievement formula for you guys that when you think about it makes so much sense. So we're going to dive in. And on page 97, talk about the 3 L's and talk about a principle that's going to change your business and change your life should you focus on it. And that is a principle that is underutilized in the real estate business, according to Gary Keller, as an achievement formula for your business. And so back in 1906, Pareto looked at the land ownership in Italy and noticed that 80% of the farmland in Italy was owned by 20% of the people. So he found that very intriguing. And as he started looking at other things, he looked at his garden yield. It also was 20% of those crops yielded 80% of the results. So he said that this is something that is a principle that works for most everything. So in your business, 20% of the activities you do are going to yield 80% of your income. And when you think about it, it means that it's slimmed down. It should be just a few things that are successful activities that you do every day that creates the biggest impact on your business. If you've read the one thing, and please don't judge my book because my little white cover is gone now. It was so dirty. that now it's missing. And so this is what it looks like without the white jacket on it. But the one thing talks about this, and it even narrows down that 20%, or what we like to call at Keller Williams, your big rocks, for you to find the one thing that's most important to do right now, that everything else would become unnecessary for your success. So the 80-20 rule is the best kept, most underutilized achievement formula. I'm going to admit, there we go. Hello and good morning. So think about that in your business. What are you doing every day? Have you ever looked through your daily calendar and at the end of the day, taken a peek at what you have been doing that actually is productive? I think a lot of agents get into busyness, and I know I do myself as well. We feel like we were very productive during the day because we did lots of things. But it wasn't necessarily the 20% that's going to create the 80% of results, or the 80% of our profitability in our business. So if you have never done the exercise of what are you doing every 15 minutes, it's very eye-opening. Now, it's not much fun either. So I'll just add that piece to it. It's very intentional of what you're doing all during the day. That could be taking you away from making money. So the 20% in your business is very important. So on page 98, I love this graph here. Gary is so good about giving us things very simply. And it says that what we do usually is this 80%, the things that make us feel like we're actually doing something every day. And a lot of times it might be because we don't want to do the 20%. Like we're not really realizing that we're doing that to ourselves, but it's a way for us to stay comfortable, because sometimes the top 20% is going to have some activities that aren't our favorite every day. And so we might love living it down here because it makes us feel good about ourselves at the end of the day, but it's not going to make us any money. So how are you thinking in terms of 80-20 in your business? And what do you think is the most important? What do you think are the things that are included in your 20% that you should be doing every day that's going to impact your business? And I hear I'm going to let Warnie in. I have some folks popping on. I hear some background noise, so I know you're there. So tell me, what do you think is in your 20% that would make you most effective every day? Warnie, you're there. What do you think is the most important? What are some things that if you were going to break your day down in the top 20%, the 20% of the things that matter most in your business to make you the most money, what do you think is included in that? I can't hear you. You're muted. There comes Janet. Well, I cannot hear you, Warnie. I am so sorry, but I'm really hoping that you're going to say lead generation, not if that's it.
Sally, I was actually going to say lead generation and client follow-up.
Yeah, there you
I'm
go.
not hearing anything.
Uh-oh, you don't hear me? I can hear you, Janet. So I can tell you.
It's my computer. Never mind.
So one of the things that I've circled on page 98, as Gary says, doing a lot of things is never substitute for doing the right things. So, I know you may have heard me say in the past that when I do these things in the morning, that this is really for me, not just for you. So yes, this is also speaking for me today. There are a lot of things that I do that are busyness that keep me from doing my top 20%. So I think that when we're aware of that and we look and we calendar every day, that could be most important. Since we've said that lead generation is important, when you guys think of generator, what do you think of?
Results.
Something that's going to make it happen, right?
Right.
I mean, I know that if you want to do a meme generator, you have to go find something that creates it for you. There's some action behind it, right? It's getting into action. But on page 99, he talks about lead generation versus lead receiving. And I thought that was very interesting. And one of the things that from the Millionaire Real Estate Agent class on Keller University, it talks about how your career will evolve. And it says, what you should see is the evolution of lead generation over the past 50 years closely mirrors the evolution of lead generation in an agent's business. And so first, agents are in surviving mode. They need to pay the bills. It forces newer agents to focus on their efforts on getting just the next deal. So their lead generation plans tend to be transactional based, and they want to meet immediate financial needs of their business that pushes them forward to prospecting activities like cold calling and door knocking. So of course, some people hate those two things. They don't like cold calling and door knocking. Some people love those. And a lot of times that gets you something quick, right? So targeting prospecting also enables agents to amass a great deal of names in their contact database in a short period of time. And then the next phase is developing. So agents that don't like the anxiety and rejection associated with prospecting, or that immediate going out and kind of hitting the bushes and finding people, they are going to begin becoming more relationship based, and they're looking to market and hit a broader audience. And that may take a little bit of time. It takes time to develop that. And then thriving is when you have both of those things and you're running them in a system to keep that engine running. So as you are looking at your business, you have to be prospecting based and marketing enhanced. And depending on what the market's doing means you're going to have to maybe shift what you're doing in your business. So on this page, I highlighted you will need lots of leads to get your business started. So if you don't have leads, then nothing else is important. Basically, that makes that very simple, doesn't it? If we're not having enough leads to get our business going, then we shouldn't focus on something else. It doesn't really matter about what font is on our business card or what color it is. I mean, those are important things for branding, but until you get out and get some leads, some of those things could be that 80%, right, that you're focusing on instead of getting out there and finding leads. So you have to embrace the fact that the number of qualified leads that you have will either grow your business or not, or put you out of business. What are your thoughts around that? Anything on that page that jumped out to you on page 99?
Sally, I'm going to digress just a minute. When you were talking about a generator, I thought of a home generator. And,
Yeah.
sometimes we lead, and there's a time, maybe whether it's vacation or sickness or something, we can't maybe put in that 2 or 4 hours. And generator, that's what it's for. It's there to take over. When the electricity or something's out, it's gone. So if you're not lead generating and building that, then nothing's there to take over. You haven't built that generator.
I love that, Carol. I'm glad you digressed. That was a wonderful way to look at that. We rely on it. We rely on a generator, especially if we had a ton of snow right now and the electricity went out, right? We would hope that generator would kick in and take care of things for us.
Right.
So I think that's fabulous. I love that. Any other thoughts? Here's a story that I loved that says, if I told you, it's the hypothetical, right? If I told you there was an out-of-town buyer who just got in this morning and they'll be paying cash, woohoo, and they need to purchase a home at the end of this week, could any of you help him out? I'm sure if we were in a room and we announced that, everyone in the room would raise their hand, wouldn't they? They say, pick me, please pick me right now. That's my guy. I got this. And what he added was, we don't know who they are, but I'm sure they're out there somewhere. They're in that happened. There's so many people coming in that we have to go out and find them. So when you look at it that way, they're out there. You've just got to figure out your ways of getting connected to those people that are coming around. And you can't wait for them just to call you. You have to go look for them. If you count on the market to deliver leads when times are good, you better count on it to take them away when times are bad. And what is given can also be taken away. And that's where the lead gen or the lead receive comes in. Are you just trying to receive leads, What are some way that you receive leads that you didn't really generate?
A lot of times I think leads seem to come from left field when you've been doing the work in a totally different direction, which I find really interesting. I had a coach one time that said that, activity brings, what was she, something about, the results are going to come from the activity, but not necessarily directly.
Yeah, this is true. Have you heard someone say, well, I don't know why, but all of a sudden I've got 2 or 3 things going.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that interesting because they've not given themselves credit for doing activities up until that point. Now, I think a lot of times agents will get in the business and they'll expect to be a lead receiver, but they don't expect to be a lead generator. Do you think that's a fair statement?
Absolutely. I know when I first got in the business, it was not with Keller Williams, and lead generation wasn't a big part of what we were taught. We were taught, FSBOs and expireds, maybe, calling 5 in a day or something like that. But as far as, having a block of time where you spent time lead generating, that was not stressed at all. And we had a lot of calls that came in from this dates me, from a Yellow Pages ad.
Yeah.
It was a big color ad in the Yellow Pages for Century 21. We were I gave that away. We were a tiny franchise. There was another much larger Century 21 franchise in the area, but people would see their signs and they'd call us. So we had a lot of leads coming in that way. In my first year, I think 8 or 9 of those transactions came from just floor time.
Yeah, I've had some of those as well. And we know here, floor time is a little different. You don't manage and kind of what I call babysit the phone for the broker. The broker pays someone to take those calls. But when something comes in that is not attached to a listing lead, because we know our company's core value is your listings, your lead, then you have that blessing business that comes to you when you sign up for that. And you want to put your name in the hat for all opportunities, right? That's where I think that coming from left field comes in. You never know if it's going to be prospecting or marketing that brings them to you, but you got to have both of those. But the fastest result is prospecting. Marketing includes putting your name out there, making offers for immediate response, those types of things. You have to set your 20-lane highway up. So I like what Carol said about generating is doing activities yourself, right? But it also can include setting up systems to keep that flowing and that follow-up going, and those referrals as you build your business, like surviving and developing and thriving as the pieces for how your lead generation will evolve as you get started, and it'll keep that thing running for you. Lead generation needs to stay on even if it's overwhelming. So I love what he said on page 100 that says when you are making that dust happen and you're in the dust bowl and it's all going on and you got a lot of business going, your natural tendency might to be like, well, I got to stop doing that because I can't deal with this right now. I don't have my systems in place. And so that's that 20-lane highway, right? To scale your business, is that you might put the foot on the brake to be able to deal with business and get into the 80% and not the 20%. So that keeps you from having income later in that pipeline. So when it talks about the leads, listings, leverage, as you grow, you're going to focus on listings, and then you're going to add leverage when you can't handle all of those things. Too many leads is a good thing. That means you're focusing and you're doing the right things. So you have a lot of choices that you didn't have before, maybe even including, I'm sorry, we're not going to be a fit in business together. Let me refer you to another agent, right? Any of those moments for you guys? Where you got the person that you just really wished you weren't in business with, but right now you need a closing? Wouldn't it be great to be free of that and have some freedom?
I let a listing go one time. The guy was actually lived across the street from me, and he was selling his house because of disability. And I found out later he was in bankruptcy. But I canceled the listing agreement with him because he said that I don't want kids coming through my house, and I felt that could be interpreted as discriminating against familial status. And then another agent in my office, I referred it to her. I said, these folks, you've sold them the house, would you be interested in taking this on? And she did, and then found out he was in bankruptcy and foreclosure, and there wasn't a whole lot you could do. I
That's
guess she didn't do
unfortunate, isn't it?
short sales at that time.
Well, I think that when you have enough leads, or you have more leads than you can handle, it allows you to be able to have some freedom on who you work with, and finding that right fit, and you have to stay busy. So the next thing after leads, on the leads that you have, of course, you're going to have buyer and seller leads. It says that if you most of the or all of the Millionaire Real Estate agents that they interviewed focused on listings, not buyers. And I know a lot of times buyers are easier to find, right? They're usually happier and more fun to work with. It's what I found. And at the same time, you can only work maybe 7 or 8 of those at any given time effectively, when they're really, really like A buyers that are going to buy right now, because it just takes so much time, unless you have some leverage with a showing assistant and some things like that. So why should we focus on seller listings? Well, on page 102, it says, first of all, there are marketing opportunities. You're marketing and you're being able to market their product, and you're going to be able to get leads from that. So it's a lead generator, right? So that's a perfect thing. I remember Robin Matthews saying, when I got in business, this was before KW, that she always expected to get 3 closings from a listing: the listing itself, the seller either moving to somewhere else in the city or giving her a referral, and a buyer from the sign. So those were the multiplication of having one listing, and how you can ramp your business up. So also you can control your time with listings more than you can with buyers. And number 3 is your per hour compensation is higher because you're spending less time. You can work volume. You can work 15 to 25 listings at one time versus 7 to 8 buyers. And then you have intimate knowledge of the market. It increases your skill base because you're looking at comps, you're doing those things. So your skill increases by working with sellers on market knowledge. And then it's a twofer because it always generates buyers. So what are your thoughts on that section?
I've never marketed to buyers, and yet, buyers will come. It's funny because when you're prospecting and talking to somebody, say in your sphere, and say, who do you know that needs to sell their house now? And they say, I don't know anyone buying a house. And it's like they're not hearing what you're saying. There's this filter that they think that we only work with buyers.
I know, but you know what? I love that you purposely scripted that conversation to focus on sellers. So I think if you're looking at, well, how do I be intentional? I mean, it doesn't bold tell us what you focus on expands. So when we focus on finding listings, the universe is going to open up more listings, and the buyers will come from that. So I like that you scripted that a little bit, and probably were able to explain to them that you were really looking for listings and that buyers would bring listings, but you appreciate any referrals, right? So I think that you're right, that's the natural thing that we think about, and scripting yourself to really look for listings and help your folks bird dog for listings for you is really key. I like that, Janet. There is simply too much upside to the listing business not to focus on listings first. And I think I have a lot of seasoned agents on this screen. I think for newer agents, and I know myself included, it was much easier to go out and get buyers first. And maybe I was a little intimidated about not having a listing presentation and that whole thing, So I think that as you get started, that's part of that surviving lead generation mode. And of course, knowing this information, I didn't, when I got started, really have this. So I think that agents have such a head start with Keller Williams because they can understand why they need to focus on finding listings, right? And that's will help them grow faster. All of the Millionaire Real Estate agents that Gary interviewed did focus on listings. And then, of course, the last L of the 3L triangle is leverage. And that's naturally going to happen because you're going to be focused on getting as many leads as possible. You're going to have a little bit of chaos going for a little bit until you have to have people, tools, or systems in your business to help you correct your customer service challenges, right? Because you have a lot of listings and you have a lot of leads to help you get to the next place. You're going to have no choice but to hire. Now, those of you that went to Business Planning Clinic, he talked a lot about that. He talked a lot about the pieces to getting to the next level in your business and how the best practices work for doing that. Any thoughts around this leverage piece as you read pages 103 to 106? I see your hand up, Adrienne, and I apologize if that's been up for a minute. I didn't see it.
No worries. What he said in Business Planning Clinic, and I think it's true, is, you know, when we get really busy, or at least for me, mine kind of flows. You want to hire somebody to take some of that pressure off, but really it's the administrative person that you need. So I've really paid a lot of attention to that, especially because when I had another business and I got really busy, I didn't hire that person. And I can see where that can make a huge difference, to take off that part, the parts that the administrative part, to help to, so it allows us the time to do what we're really good at, and that's getting the listings and working with the buyers, working with the sellers. So I really can see why they say that, even though sometimes that might be a hard choice to make, first in hiring them and to hire them as administrative and not like a buyer's specialist.
Yes. And, you know, he said that's what most agents want to do. They want to hire the buyer specialist. And you know what, I think maybe it's a little bit of salary money commitment on the administrative piece versus the buyer's agent piece, because the buyer's agent's only going to get paid when it closes, right? And then the admin, you're having to fit them in your world. Your world has to be big enough monetarily for them to fit within it. So I think that's a little bit of fear based around that too.
Oh, sure.
Of getting that. That's typically the hardest piece. I think the hardest thing is to start with the first hire, for sure. But there are, when you look at the leverage questions, who's going to do this? People, or how will they do it with systems, and what will they do? What will they do with it, or tools? So you have some things to think about, and before you go, right, and put those systems in place. And you're going to play red light, green light. Do you guys remember him talking about red light, green light in your business?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when you've been maxed out on what you can accomplish, then you're going to hire that person. And what I've heard too is that you don't, it's like Mount Everest. Only a small handful of climbers have ever successfully climbed Mount Everest alone. No one succeeds alone. I have a t-shirt that says that. It's one of the things you'll hear Keller Williams say. Those that are at the top, they are not there by themselves, right? They've got people helping them get to that top, and you're going to have a guide to go with you if you're really seriously about climbing to the top of that mountain in Mount Everest. So pushing to that path. So all of those pieces, people, systems, and tools will give you freedom. And when you hire that right person initially, you're going to make sure, we talked about standards and setting up the standards, and how you think is the way the Millionaire Real Estate Agent thinks. You're going to bring that back into translating it to that next person that's going to help you climb Mount Everest. You're going to tell them what that looks like.
Sally, one thing that I appreciate about Keller Williams is they do make it easy for us along the way. If you're not there to hire on that assistant or that first leverage, you've got a closing coordinator right here within the office that can do that for you. And that takes, at a much smaller ratio of amount of money, that really takes a lot off your plate.
And it's by transaction only. It's not like you have to budget a salary.
So you can start a little bit at a time. and implementing those things, and kind of get a flow for how that works and feel comfortable with handing it off, right? Because I think that's a hard piece for a lot of people, is handing off that and somebody else being in control of it. It's a control thing a lot of times. I think
And we're all
on page-
control freaks.
On page 107, near the top, it says, for now, we'll simply say that people are the most powerful form of leverage. Hire carefully. Take those who can exceed your standards and don't settle for less. For me, I think that is the hardest part in handing something off, is knowing how to hire that right person. Because if you have to take a lot of time to train somebody, then they're really taking away, and you might have a transition period where you have to do that, which I completely understand. But if you hire the wrong person, like a favor or a friend, which it mentions in there, you really need to find people that will exceed our standard and that they'd be good at what we're hiring them to do. Because if we hire the wrong person, it can be very costly in our time and our money.
Absolutely. It's like a cul-de-sac. I think they mentioned later on in the book, it's cul-de-sac. It keeps us in a circle instead of going forward. I like that it mentioned that, Adrian. It said it's crucial that you avoid settling for people who merely fill gaps, who fill the gap of your chaos right now, and who do not have the capacity to grow. So there's that. Once you've experienced great, good just isn't good enough. So I love it. It's a leap of faith, and it'll open you up to have freedom. That freedom word is mentioned. Systems are simply the repeatable processes that allow us to duplicate magnificent results easily. So there's that 20-lane highway again. Remember, going back and building your systems and models that way that it's easy to tell the person that's coming in, here's what we're doing, and this is the standard I expect. And they may even plus you, right? If they're great, they'll come to you later and say, what about this? Would this make this better? And that would be amazing. So you guys, we are right here at 9 o'clock. Focus on dollar productive activities. Look at your week this week and see if you're staying in the 20% or if you're waiting in the 80%, and see how that changes your week this week on what you accomplish. And I look forward to talking with you next Monday, and we're going to have the best week. It's an amazing Monday, and I'm so thankful to be with you guys. Have a good one.
What pages for next week?
Oh, we are going to do 107. I believe we're going to go to 115. I will let you know.
Okay.
Yes, 107 to 115. We're going to talk
Thank you,
about
Sally.
goal
Thank
categories.
you.
All right. Bye.
Thanks, Sally.
See
Thank you,
y'all.
Sally.
Thank you guys.